What do we do next? Let's do primary. Primary's fun. Primary, remember these words. Primary is the simplest yet most important system on a truck. So, maintaining what we got for components of our primary system. We do a freebie. We've got a primary air tank. Everybody knows that. What else?
The treadle valve.
Yes, very nice. Treadle valve.
And then P and V valves, or that's secondary.
We'll throw all those on there. They are in line with primary items. There's something else you're missing as well.
What I say, park brake?
No. Something else you're missing.
Relay valve?
Oh, there it is. Relay valve. R14 if you want to get Cody from Bendix. That's what they call it. So I figured I'd call it that too. What's it?
D4 valve.
D4 valve, RJ Jones. Hey. So on this one, we got to start from the beginning. Primary air tank. Where does it get its air from?
The supply tank.
Supply tank, yeah. So coming off of that supply tank to the primary air tank, what's between them?
Check ball.
Try to draw this the right way. So at that point, is that air between them considered supply or primary?
Supply?
It is supply all the way up until it passes the check valve, which I believe is mounted on a tank. So you just consider that line supply air. So why is a check valve important in that location?
So if the supply tank busts, it won't lose its pressure.
Or the secondary tank, or anything on that circuit goes down.
And the truck can make a safe stop.
We may not charge our primary tank, but we'll at least retain it, and at least we'll get one stop out of it. We'll be able to safely stop the vehicle at least once. That's the goal. The DOT requirement, do not remove the check valves. They are needed. They are important. Just because they look like fittings doesn't mean they are. Now that we're in our primary system, our treadle valve is supplied by our primary. Our treadle valve is actually split into two. Why is that?
For primary and secondary circuits?
Right. So it also has secondary circuits coming out of it. So if you've seen it, you've replaced them. It's two valve stacks with one reaction rod. You notice that, right?
Mm-hmm.
All your reds hook up around one, and all your greens hook up around the other one. That's why it's two. It's actually two separate valves with one rod acting as one. Bye. So we got primary air coming into the treadle valve. Okay.
Oh, door?
Yeah. I was wondering why it sends air to the brakes. Can you view it? To the relay valve.
Okay, yeah, to the relay valve. What is the purpose of a relay valve? And I'll keep this in the context of electrical or air systems. What is the definition of a relay? Those?
to, want to say, limit and send to another location? Or,
You're on it.
or
Oh shit, fuck me. It doesn't limit anything.
it relays to another.
Redirects.
Kind of getting there. I'll speed you up a little bit. The definition of a relay in any sense of the term is we're taking a small amount of power to control a large amount of power. This is true with electrical. We can send the VCU can send a little bit of current to a relay and manage to sustain that relay coil, while the relay sends 70 amps somewhere. Obviously, the VCU is not going to be able to handle 70 amps. That's why it needs a relay. Much like this, our treadle valve cannot possibly supply enough air for our 4 brake chambers back here to be efficiently run. It would take forever for them to apply. And in a game of milliseconds, it's not quick enough. So we use our relay valve. How this relay valve works, yes, it gets that signal from the treadle valve, comes down just like you said before, but it has this nice big fat green air hose. I don't know if you've seen it. I'm just gonna make it super thick. It's like a 1/2-inch air hose, right? You replace enough relays, you've seen them. Hard as hell to disconnect.
Oh, yeah.
That is constant pressure from our primary air tank, and it is a voluminous air pressure. Basically, this treadle valve can tell the relay valve we need some pressure, and then when that relay valve opens up, it's taking this large volume air hose and sending it down to our brake chambers, thus enhancing the speed of them. They're effectively stopping the vehicle efficiently. We're not waiting. So the same thing is true when we let go. It has to take all that air in those brake chambers and release it out of the relay valve out the bottom. That's why you hear that noise coming out the relay valve. It doesn't exhaust at the brake chambers, it exhausts at the relay valve because that is the control. So, we're talking about a lot of this. We're going to break off, since this is a really simple system, we're going to kind of break off into air chambers. That seems to be a point of contention for some people as well. So, I want to talk about that. Already talked about, we have PMVs. What does PMV stand for?
Pulse modulation valve?
Look at you go. Love it. What are the 3 states that a PMV can be in?
Hold, release, and pulse?
Hold, release,
Nothing.
normal/nothing. It depends on how you want to think about it. Basically, there's only 3 wires on there. You got one as a ground or a common, and there's 2 solenoids. You got a hold solenoid and a release solenoid. Otherwise, it is a straight connector. So if you imagine that PMV is just a thread-on connector, a piece of pipe, basically. If air goes through it, air can come back. Either way, it doesn't matter. That is in its normal state. There's nothing commanded upon it. That's unplugged. ABS doesn't activate it. Whatever you want to say, that's how it normally acts. If it fails, it probably goes back to that. Hold. I want you to think about this like a crossing guard at a school zone, right? If the crossing guard is out there and he looks left and right and says, do whatever you want, I don't care. That's normal. We're doing that all day. Now, if that crossing guard says, hold up, he's saying to the traffic, hold up, you can't go. I'm not letting you in, I'm not letting you out. Y'all gotta stop right there too. Everybody hold up. There's a double hold. Basically, that relay, no matter what air it sends to that PMV, it cannot get through the PMV. No matter how much it exhausts, the PMV will not exhaust its air. Whatever in that brake chamber, bumping up against the PMV, gets held as well. So no air goes in, no air comes out. It is holding. Release is similar, with the notable exception that it is venting our brake chamber. So any air that's coming up against that PMV through the brake chamber side gets vented to atmosphere. But again, relay valve cannot go through that PMV. It's not allowing it. That's how the ABS works. In conjunction with, there's another one. What's that little electrical connector on top of the relay valve? You ever seen that one? Little two-wire?
Say 5 volts or a signal?
No, what is that
Oh.
up there? Do you know? Okay. ATC ring a bell?
Oh, the automatic
Was-
traction control.
Yeah, automatic traction control. So if the ABS module says, I want air on my brake chambers, it activates that one, which electrically tells the relay valve to give me some air. Same thing as the treadle valve. Just electronically. So then ABS module will open up the PMVs, let the air go in. So through all this, the ABS module can take control completely of this relay valve through conjunction of PMVs and ATC. That's as far as I'm going to go into ABS stuff. I just want you to know that those are there, they're in play. They can cause you some grief, right? So, move on a little bit. Do you have any questions about primary systems? We're going to talk about brake chambers next. Okay. While we have a second, I think it's healthy to know a little bit of science behind a brake chamber and why we do what we do, right? So, I'm going to pass this around. Tom don't want to see it. I know he's seen it all. Try not to knock your phone over, but that is a cutaway of a brake chamber so you can see what we're talking about. So, we'll start off by saying there are multiple different kinds of brake chambers. Today we're not going to get into that long versus short stroke debate and all that jazz. We're going to talk about the fundamental things of a brake chamber. Forgive my crude drawing, but that is a brake chamber. Now we have air supply coming in, and this could be primary or secondary. We're not really defining it right now. We're just talking about brake chambers in general. We have air coming in. We have a diaphragm in the middle. Basically, the more air pressure we put behind the diaphragm, the more push we get. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Quintessentially, you got a brake chamber. It could be that simple. Now, I want to break it down for you and kind of talk about it a little bit more. The term 30-30. Do you know what that means when I say I need a 30-30 brake chamber?
A double brake chamber? Or double chamber brake chamber?
It is, yeah. What's the 30? What you said I need a 30 brake chamber?
The area inside the brake chamber?
Is the area inside the brake chamber. And the area is what? Like how much area?
30 square inch or?
Yes, 30 square inch, you're correct.
Oh.
Yeah, you nailed that. Now, unfortunately for us, it is a circle. That was almost a good circle. I've been really trying to get the little swoopy thing. Can't get it. But it's a circle, it's a cylindrical, but it's 30 square inches. So if you did the math on circumference and you did some algebra and leaped over your head, you'll come up with 30 square inches for that diaphragm. And the diaphragm is a rubber piece in the middle. That's what the air is pushing on. So what I want you to do as an exercise, we know it's 30 square inches, right? What's our max PSI of our system?
135?
What's 30 times 135? Somebody whip out their phone and the calculator and tell me what that is.
$4,050.
4,050. At that clevis pin, the thing that acts upon the slack adjuster, at max application, it is pushing 4,000 pounds out of it. Each brake chamber. These are nothing to play with, right? Through simple math, you can kind of see where we're going here. What I want you to realize is that at 4,000 pounds, that's 2 tons. That's your floor jack at the house. Your floor jack can lift up a car. These can too. They're that powerful. At 135, of course, we don't always use them at 135, likely it's like 20 PSI or something like that is all we need for normal stopping. But when you crank down on it, they can do it. So now, we talked about this is a service kind of brake chamber. Now we're gonna talk about a service plus park brake chamber. Then we'll have a reaction rod through the middle. It's a crude drawing, forgive me. But what I want you to know is that park brake side, the back end of it, there's a spring back there. You see that big old blue spring back there?
Mm-hmm.
That's your park brake spring. That's nothing to play around with either. It takes relatively 60 PSI in order to pull back that spring. So again, if you do 60 PSI times a 30, you're gonna get some really good numbers out of that. I think 1,800. So 1,800 pounds of force to begin to compress that spring. You can see how much power is in that spring by itself. The way the system works is that if you push in park brake air, it pushes that back plunger or that diaphragm toward the spring, pulls back the whole reaction rod and cages that spring, coils it up just like you see in there. Now if you let go of this park brake side air, that spring is allowed to uncoil and push on the brake setup itself, making a park happen. Now while we're caged in with air, something to note here as well, have you ever heard of anti-compounding? It's a cool feature that these trucks have. So imagine, if you will, if we have 1,800 pounds of force at the spring, and the driver stomps on the brake, and the park brake set, and he stomps on the brake pedal. We're adding another 4,000 pounds of force up there. That's 4,800 pounds of force, 5,800 pounds of force. That brake chamber may blow apart. I mean, if they're a little rusty or something like that, they'll go shooting off. So we don't want that. So how do we avoid that? Basically, your relay valve that I was talking about before, and in conjunction with the quick release valve, they work hand in hand, and they tell each other, hey, my brakes aren't released. I'm not going to apply service brake. That's too much. We're going to compound it. We don't want spring and service brake. Now, when you push in the park brakes and the spring is caged in the back, yeah, all day, do what you want. Put power on it. Don't matter. I can take it. That makes sense so far?
Mm-hmm.
Most critical thing for you to know about brake chambers, and the failure point that we see most often, the little seal right there, I kind of circled it, but it's a seal between on the reaction rod between the front and back chamber, and you kind of see it inside of here as well. A little white seal right there. It's got a nice little cutaway. Imagine if that seal leaked and we introduced air into this chamber. Where would that air go?
Into the other chamber.
Into the other chamber, which would in turn come out of that fitting, which would go where?
To the relay valve.
The relay valve. So you would experience a hissing or air loss at the relay valve with the park brakes pushed in. Makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I knew you knew that. I was testing you. Any questions before we move on?
Nope.
Okay. Cool.